8 months and a few days now, so.
One more minute while the different networks are talking to each other. Great. Okay, we are live streaming. All right. Hi, everybody. It's what are we in? June 21st for 16 p.m. for the Live Well Kingston Commission meeting. We're a small group right now, but I'm going to welcome people as they join us. Why don't we start off with a quick round of introductions? I'll have everyone in the room here go first, then we'll move to the screen and I'll kick us off. So I'm Emily Flynn. I'm the Director of Health and Wellness for the City of Kingston. I use she, her pronouns, and I will pass Eric. And then if you don't mind, pass to the next person.
All right. Captain Eric Muse, Salvation Army for Ulster, Northwest Dutchess County.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Marcia Sebro, Project Manager with the Health and Wellness Department for the City of Kingston. And I'll pass it to you, Katrina.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katrina Williams. I'm the Deputy Commissioner at the Ulster County Department of Mental Health. I use she, her, they have pronouns, and Commissioner. Thank you.
And Tanya Garvin, City of Kingston resident.
Hi, Rose Quinn, City of Kingston resident, also sit on the Ulster County Traffic Safety Board, representative for Downers for Safe Streets, and former director of traffic safety education for.
All right, great. Let's move to the folks who are joining us remotely. Teresa, if you're ready, do you mind introducing yourself? And then Kristen, then Troy Ellen, then Dr. Later, and that's it.
Sure, I'm Teresa Widman. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the chair of the Heal Well Focus team. In addition, I do sound healing, coaching work, and I'm a Explore coordinator for the O Positive Festival and a host on Radio Kingston. I have too many hats. And you want me to pass who I can pass to Kristen?
Hi, I am Kristen Kessler. My pronouns are she, her. I am a project manager in the Department of Health and Wellness, overseeing a project called Creating Healthy Schools and Communities, and then supporting a couple of our different focus teams for Live Well Kingston, like Heal Well with Teresa and Eat Well. And then I think that maybe Troy Ellen is going to go next.
Thank you, Kristen. It's good to see you all. I'm Troy Ellen Dixon, or Ted. My pronouns are she, her, aya. I am chair of the Live Well Kingston Commission. I am one of the original members of the Kingston Emergency Food Collaborative, work I'm still doing. I am the president of the Communities for Local Power, and I am also working with Radio Kingston, doing their underwriting program, which supports their community fund. And I will pass it to Ellis later.
Hi, Ellis Later. I'm Chief of Cardiology at the Health Alliance Kingston. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Susanna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susanna Callahan, Vice President for Planning and Community Engagement for the Institute for Family Health, Network of Qualified Health Centers. And I apologize, but I can only stay on for about a half hour or so today.
That's absolutely.
Yeah, but happy spring, everyone. Oh, actually summer. Happy summer, starting today.
Thank you, Susanna. I think we got everybody. So I'm just bringing up the agenda for tonight. We might, actually, let me stop the share. Let me see if we've got a quorum. So we've got 2 here. So we don't have a quorum at the moment unless Elias or someone else wants to give their address from which they're calling in. But it would have to be like 2 or 3 of you. So I'm guessing that we're not going to have quorum tonight, which is fine, but just wanted to check in on that first. So we will not accept meeting minutes tonight. And that's fine. We can cover that another time. We didn't have anything in administrative matters. I did want to do a quick discussion about some potential meeting agreements. And then Kristen wanted to do a quick update about our zoning letter of support. I think she has some updates from the project manager for the zoning code. Then we have a presentation from Healwell. Then I don't have any new business unless anyone would like to add it to the agenda. Then we do quick announcements and communications. And then I mentioned that our next meeting won't be until September 20th. But what I don't have on the agenda is community comment. So if everyone's all right with it, I'm assuming you folks want to make a comment. So I'd like to open that up unless any commissioners feel strongly that we should do something differently. I don't see any hands up.
Nope.
All right, great. So Rose and Tanya, I'm just going to give you 5 minutes each.
Thanks. Okay, thanks. So in February, you all talked a little bit about the bike legislation, which started off in 2022. Live Kingston, Climate Smart Kingston, and Complete Streets Advisory Council reviewed proposed legislation that was put together to facilitate a bike share company if they came to town. What would the requirements be? Things like level of customer service and such, how many bikes, and in January, as I hope you all know by this point, it turned into something different, very different. It included legislation when it went to the Common Council that was additional laws for bicyclists beyond what the state has. And so the scope changed from bike share companies and bicycles within bike share companies or shared mobility systems and bicycles and scooters within those systems, to every bicycle and every scooter used in the city of Kingston. And it's quite a problematic list, and it persists. Last month, in fact, Laws and Rules voted it through. And it not only voted in these problematic laws, it also basically pummeled the bike share company aspect by saying you must have 24 hours customer service, phone service, you must have a certain level of insurance, all these other things. However, the maximum number of bikes for the whole system of 24,000 people, city, 5 bicycles. That's the maximum, only to be increased once a year, and only if you can prove that one bike rack of bicycles got rented 3 times a day throughout the winter, summer, spring, and fall. So, no, we're not going to need a bike system with that legislation. It went through Laws and Rules, but they were such a hot mess in terms of explaining to the public what this was. And I know that this commission also got confused along the way too, that they passed it through Laws and Rules, but the president of the Common Council said it had to go back to subcommittee because you didn't post the right thing online, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. However, they're pretty committed to it because they were on the agenda for the Finance and Audit Committee to set the fee schedule for the bike share company. Tonight is Finance and Audit. There's no public speaking at Finance and Audit meeting. Not Finance and Audit, Laws and Rules. It's back at Laws and Rules. It got tabled in Finance and Audit for further discussion at Laws and Rules, quite possibly because the day before, a police officer, one of the new police officers on bikes, got hit in the Broadway cycle track. An 18-year-old was driving her car from Elmendorf, making a right turn onto Broadway, did not notice that it's no right turns on red anymore, made the right turn on red and hit the bike cop. He was not badly injured, at least in terms of what the report said, but this, they didn't dare put fees for this. They still have not been transparent. The proposed legislation is still not up online. They've got 3 of 12 old pages up there. They are not being forthright with what they have, but they passed this last month, and it's quite possible that they'll pass it tonight unless there's some pushback. The public can do very little except for write to them individually, and the Common Council members unfortunately are very slow to read their emails. So you guys could write a letter. You could write things like, we would like a bike share company. Do not pass this as it is. We don't believe that e-bikes should, we believe that parents should be allowed to have their children ride on the back of e-bikes. That's one of the beauties of e-bikes, is that it's a cargo bike. It's a way to bring your kids. Do not have this rule that says no passengers on e-bikes. We believe that police should not have discretionary oversight whether people are breaking a rule or not, such as trick riding, no trick riding interpreted by the police allowed, no speeding beyond what's reasonable on your regular own bike, interpreted by the police. These laws are not an answer to our traffic safety emergency that we're going through. The Common Council needs to have a real discussion about this and not just react viscerally. There are other things that could be done, and it needs to come back to the committees. I hope that you will really consider writing today in this meeting, because that is the time. Not only are you going on a couple of months off, but tonight is laws and rules, and they very well could vote it in again. They did it last month, so it's an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I just wanted to, obviously strongly second everything that Tanya was saying. I was actually speaking at the Laws and Rules meeting last week when I was presenting. Sorry.
I did it.
Well, I presented on the safe system approach, which the city is now considering very strongly adopting and considering going forward and applying for the Safe Streets and Roads grant, which I urged them to do, and it turns out that they're really gonna look into that and try and do it, so I really applaud that. However, like, whenever we're talking about any of these programs, first and foremost, we have to talk about engagement. There's literally been, not only has there been no engagement about the bike share program, which if you look at best practice for bike share programs, it absolutely starts with engagement. There's so much literature on it. So, and then when, so without the engagement of the bike share, and then without the engagement from the bike community, which by the way is pretty up in arms about a lot of these proposals. I mean, some of these proposals really directly contradict New York state law. So for example, they're part of the new ordinance would say that cyclists have to ride single file when they're going down the road. Well, New York state law says that you are allowed to ride 2 abreast, and you are also, by New York state law, allowed to take over a lane if you feel that your safety is interfered. So passing that ordinance, and I can tell you as a safety person, this is something I get a lot of attention to, and avid cyclist, and a bike. Actually, it was an LCI for the League of American Cyclists for many years. That entire procedure, that ability to be able to, take over a lane, to slow traffic down if you absolutely have to, is critical. It has probably saved my life several times with aggressive drivers. So to remove that ability from cyclists is really absolutely counter to the safe systems approach, I would say, as is the lack of engagement, as is the very problematic overstep, I would say, in the ordinance that regulates things like trick riding. So trick riding is things like kids pulling wheelies, right? Now, I know all of us say, well, we really don't want kids pulling wheelies. So I agree with you. As a safety person, I totally agree with you. However, that's a parent issue. Okay, that's not a police issue. That is not an issue that you want the police to approach your children about. This has ended very badly for children of color in other communities. They've had their bikes seized, they've been tased, there have been protests. Look up Perth Amboy. Okay, this is very problematic and it's overstep. New York State already has very clear laws about this stuff. We don't need more. So, I mean, I would love to see the entire bike share program be revisited based on the fact that there was no community engagement. However, I would, at this point anyway, just settle for, which actually many people in Common Council promised me was going to happen, that the bike legislation that coordinates privately owned bikes and e-bikes not be part of this. And then, we'll have to have the debate about the rest of it. But, to go forward and change these ordinances on people without opening up to that community, like what the best practices really should be, is really counter to everything safe systems stand for. So I also would urge you to please at least ask them to take a moment to look this over, because it really just feels like no one's doing that. So thank you.
Can I ask a question? Thank you. Without getting maybe too political, if anyone, either the two of you who are just spoke, I missed the introductions, but why is there this divide? Like, how did it get to this point, of passing this and then suddenly, not suddenly, but I mean, how did this divide happen? I guess I'm a little confused.
We don't, can I speak to that?
Yeah, we literally don't.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
So the sustainability coordinator, Julie Noble, in part of their climate action plan, they have a goal of creating a bike share program.
Mhm.
So, and there's ARPA funding for it. And so she, actually Complete Streets Advisory Council had a draft ordinance that they had gotten
Right.
from another.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember all that?
Remember
Sorry,
this, yeah.
I'll skip forward. So she presented that legislation, and then what I can speak to is that I was in a meeting with Michael Oliveri and some other city staff, where when we heard that the legislation had included all of those changes, he said he was going to separate out the legislation to just be about the ordinance and not about any of those other laws. And then what showed up at that committee was not that. And John Gospelin, the chair of Complete Streets Advisory Council, and I emailed Elisa Tinty for the copy of the legislation, and it looked different from what they had at that committee. So either there was a clerical error or there's been some confusion, and I can't speak to what it is now at all, but I can give you that.
Okay, thank you.
Multiple things, yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very complex piece of legislation that just kind of got thrown together and is being rushed through. I think we may not all agree on all of the items. It sounds like there are a number of things there that are really, I would have trouble with. So I think if we can, say something that would convey to the Common Council that it's a very complex piece of legislation, and we should just postpone voting on it till interested parties all had a chance to weigh in. I think that would be a good move.
Were you gonna say something?
No, I think it's not necessary. I was at the meeting, at the Laws and Rules meeting last month when they passed it through, and they had a printed copy of it, and it was different than the months before, but it still contained all 5 articles and the same scope. So it had added in there the change so that you could have a maximum of 5 bicycles, and that you couldn't increase your bicycles until every year. It had those in it, so I knew that it was a new one since the month before. But it still had Article 1 bicycles, which covers all bicycles, and Article 2, whatever they called e-bikes and scooters, and Article 4, I think it was, parking, which the scope was parking of all privately owned and bike share bicycles. So it still had those articles still were still in it. So yeah, that's what they had it all as the same as a document still. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess the way I feel about it is if folks in the community that obviously has a stake in this type of thing and like knows a lot about it are feeling like the community hasn't been heard, then that would be a reason. I'm not like a cyclist, so I don't know very much about any of it, but I feel like that's a reason to ask them to slow down the process and get that community buy-in.
Can we make a motion for this committee to issue a recommendation?
You can sort of as a casual agreement, which I think is a great idea. We don't have a quorum, so we can't do it like a formal agreement, but the way that we've done letters of support in the past is really between the chair and whoever's sort of suggesting it. If the chair agrees with it, then we are empowered to write a letter of support, recommendation. So we have a method of doing it if you'd like.
I mean, I think something very generic, but that we feel that the piece of legislation is so complex, it requires more time to review appropriately.
Great. I guess I would like to ask, Tran, you got your hand up? Go ahead.
I'm in complete agreement that this needs to be slowed down. I'm not sure exactly why there is such a rush to put this through and why things have been cobbled together so that we end up with this sort of Rube Goldberg contraption of a regulation. But certainly, Tanya has spent time talking to me about this in separate conversations. I have been reading documents that have been provided, and I'm not quite sure how the city ended up here. And I know we have no regulatory or legislative authority, but we are about people living well in Kingston. And that we could certainly make some sort of, I guess it would have to be verbal at this point, though, since the meeting is happening tonight.
And what does that look like?
Yeah.
If someone wanted to write up something, they could send it to you, Troy Ellen, right? And you could email it on, I suppose, on behalf of Live Well Kingston, if all the commissioners were in agreement with that.
I could, but I wouldn't be able to do it before the meeting because I have this meeting and then I'm expected at the solstice celebration at Y Farm.
Yeah.
We're on a tight deadline here, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't mean to put more work on you. My apologies.
It's all right. You asked.
All right, then. Any other thoughts about process or response? You know, the commission can keep, I can try to stay abreast of this and update you all. Unless there's any other requests or, you know, calls to action at this time. That's sort of what I'm thinking about.
The process is it has to pass this committee and then it would go to the full council, or what's the?
Yes, and yeah, we go to the full council this coming common council meeting, which is the first week of July. Yeah.
And then it would have 2 readings.
So we would still,
It's not a local law, what? It's a
Ordinance?
ordinance, yeah.
Okay.
so we would still have the opportunity to get a letter in before it, because it has to be adopted by the full common council, correct?
Right.
Do we know, this is just as a clarifying thing, does it need to go back to audit and, is it finance, audit and finance after laws and rules?
If they pass this, the laws and rules passes this legislation again, or decide that last month somehow stands that it was passed, or passes another version that they make today, then it does go to finance and audit to set the fee schedule. And depending on what they want to do, it's been done both ways, where they could just refer it to finance and audit at this month, or they could pass it and then it goes to finance. I mean, common council could pass it and then it goes to finance and audit. So we don't necessarily have 2 months. So.
Okay, but we have more than until 11:59 this evening to be able to come forward with something. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
the fact that this commission is not meeting in July and August shouldn't be an issue, given the way in which we have put together letters of support in the past, or letters of intent, or letters of point of view, or whatever we want to call this. So I think that we ought to be able to do that unless any of my fellow commissioners think we shouldn't.
So how about, I propose, Tanya, do you mind updating us if what happens at laws and rules tonight?
Sure,
Cool.
sure.
If you send that to me, I'll send it out to the commissioners.
Okay. All right, great. And then I guess a likely deadline would be not the common council meeting where they vote, but at the latest, I would say it should be in by common council caucus the day before when they discuss it. And that's when the committees update the other council members who haven't kept up with what the committees discussed that month. So it's the day before the monthly common council meeting is the common council caucus. It's there's no Republicans, so it's just one caucus that they have.
Emily,
so-
can I ask you, just in terms of making the formal recommendation, I think once before when we had something like that, where we didn't have quorum, you circulated the actual letter or something to the different members, and we were able to vote on it, separately. So maybe we could still make it formal if we, drafted just a simple little statement, circulated it, and then you could send it to the right committee.
Yep, we could, so if Tanya finds out that it does go forward, the commission can draft a statement and then we can circulate it and sort of do sort of an email vote, which then I'll capture in the notes for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think it's just, I mean, there's a strong sentiment that this is very complicated. It needs careful thought rather than a quick approval. And I think that's all we need to convey.
And I would want to, I know oftentimes it just goes over the, the chair's signature, my signature. I would want to list all of the members that are here today, of all the commissioners on it. Unless any of the commissioners do not want to be listed on it.
And maybe they can decide that when we send out that draft, so they have time to review. Let's do it that way, so we know what they're saying.
That makes sense.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is helpful.
All right, if we're sort of done with that moment, we'll move on. So no administrative matters. I'll move us on to old business. And that was a review of community agreements. I've got a few printed copies for the folks in the room, but I'll bring it up on screen. Just a moment. The sun's getting in my eyes.
I was inclined to put my sunglasses on, but that seems really odd.
I'm kind of surprised this room doesn't have any curtains. So, I believe, actually, I'm gonna stop sharing because I want to see Troy Allen's face. I believe that I introduced this, but try and remind me, I haven't gone line by line on this, in this committee, right?
I don't believe so. We're doing it in a couple of spaces that you and I are in, Emily.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think we've done it in this.
Great, thank you for that reminder. Okay, so let me cue it up again. I think I brought this just as an introduction the last time. And let me just quickly review the goal of it. So the goal of it is that we create a space that is welcoming to all and that everyone here feels respected and empowered to participate. So my Zoom is acting up a little bit. Okay, but it looks like everyone's still there. Yeah, they're still there. Okay. So these are some community agreements. Oh, forgive me, everybody. My Zoom quit, but it seems like you're all still there. Let me try to share again. Might not like me sharing my screen, but we'll try again. So this was agreements that the commission has approved in the past, but of course, commission changes every time we have new members, and it seemed like a good time to bring it back up again. I can go through each one if we'd like to go into that level of detail. My goal or ask of you is to let me know any edits, let me know any questions about any of them, and to maybe some point in the future officially do a motion to approve them. Doesn't have to be this month, it can be future months, there's no urgency whatsoever on this. But also let me say how it's useful. We can bring this to our other focus teams and say that this is an agreement that the commission feels that they want to share. And then it can be used as a tool when new parts of Live Well Kingston meet. We can point to it that these are some of the values that we are trying to uphold. So before I maybe go into some of them individually, any questions about any of that thus far, about why we're doing it, or what my ask is?
No, I was going to ask if these were based on something, but I saw the little footnote, so yeah, that's great.
Cool. All right, no, I don't see. I might not see your hand go up, by the way, to the folks on Zoom, so feel free to. Usually we like to use the little hand signal, which is sometimes one of our community agreements, but when I'm sharing the screen, I sometimes can't see you. All right, so I'm going to go through them a little bit quickly. As you see, the ones that we've picked up are pretty brief, and we can always make them more detailed. I do like having it to one page. I do feel like that's sort of nice for a new person to be able to sort of get it pretty quickly. As Troy Allen mentioned in the Kingston Emergency Food Collaborative, we're going through this right now, and they're more in depth. And in fact, if we wanted to, we could ask for what they decide on, if we wanted to do more research on this. But let me go quickly through them, what my understanding of them are, and then we can ask if any of them are sticky for anybody. We can ask clarifying questions or discuss it together. So be curious, open, respectful. That to me is about making a welcoming space to come with sort of curiosity instead of judgment. The second one is not everyone knows everything. Together we know a lot. This idea that we are human, we cannot possibly know everything, and we're going to ask each other for help deciding things. We can't be articulate all the time. This one I like to call on almost every commission meeting. We take care of ourselves. So I really like to make sure that we have meetings where if you need to go to the bathroom, you just get up. This is not such a formal space that those things can't be done. We can eat in this room, by the way, so feel free to bring food if you need to. We've had people bring their kids, like we want to try to incorporate that. Confidentiality, so this is a value where, sometimes we have some city projects that are confidential. And so when we're, especially now within the live streaming world, we want to be a little bit aware of what we're saying. And this idea, I think also for me, is part of this idea of speaking for your own experiences. One mic is sometimes a little bit easier on Zoom. It's really hard in some ways to talk, but I've seen people try to do it, right? So one mic is this idea that one person talks at a time. Take space, make space. This is one that we were talking about in Kingston Emergency Food Collaborative today. So this is I feel like every human, this is a reflection of for ourselves. We all at different times take space or really, become the extrovert or become the introvert. And so I think this is an ask for everyone to be aware of where they're at in that moment and make sure that other people get a chance to talk. Avoid jargon, acronyms, industry language. Recently at our Eat Well Kingston, we really made an attempt to not, it's so easy to fall back on jargon for programming, federal programs, grant applications, it's just so easy. So to always come back and try not to use jargon. Be aware of time, and then there's that abbreviation, ELMO, enough, let's move on. There are times when we get stuck on a conversation, and if possible, we can always pause things and bring them up at another time. I think we've really gotten too deep into something. Oh, here's speak from your own experiences. So I sort of was incorporating that into a higher up one as well. That using I statements is a great rule of thumb. Be conscious of intent versus impact. Sometimes this can be a little bit of a sticky one. So this is an awareness that no matter how you think you might be presenting something or saying something, that your behavior might not be interpreted that way. And to me, this is an ask of humility, so that if someone does give you feedback that like what you said landed differently, that you try to pause and listen and maybe not even react in that moment. So to me, intent versus impact has greater implications about sort of how the words you use and how you conduct yourself. And to me, that's being open to feedback on it. That's my own personal interpretation. Avoiding isms, that's similar, I think, to jargon. And it's also a request to be thoughtful about what you're saying. And when, to me, it's about using more exact language instead of saying like a group of people, using a specific culture or a specific person. That's how I'm interpreting isms today. Whew, I feel like I went through those quickly. Are there any of them that are bringing up something for you, or doesn't make sense to you, you want clarification on? Is there any of them that you feel strongly about that you think are really important? Are there any that you think we're greatly missing? Are there any that you think aren't appropriate for the work that we do? Those are sort of some general questions that I'm throwing out to everybody.
I love it. I think it's great. I want a copy of this for my team meetings.
Well, it's you take the Google document, make it your own.
I'll say that we use this in some of our work group meetings and it's been really helpful, particularly the take space, make space. I don't know how, you're making me realize we don't revisit this very often, which we should, but the take space, make space is an important one that I feel like is really important to remember and touch on. Yeah, that's been helpful.
I think this is really great. The only thing I have a question about is, like, I throw sunshine, not shade. I get that, don't be a Debbie Downer, you know, a David Downer. Call in, not out was to me, a little obscure. And you know, because you mentioned, it said be curious, open, respectful, and no judgment. So I didn't connect that to the other phrases.
Great, okay. We think about how we want to go. How about I could propose some new language that I can put in here to review for next time?
Okay, it
Or-
just,
Yeah,
it wasn't clear to me what call in, not out meant.
okay. I can try to define it unless if anyone else wants to. So to me, calling in, not out, so, the language calling out someone, I've heard is sometimes if it's hard not to do it without kind of buzz culture words, but I'm thinking about, sometimes you use. How do I
Like you're calling someone out, like you're challenging them?
Yeah.
kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or like you're saying that they're the bad guy. So for me, the idea, not to jump in, sorry,
No, please,
but like,
please.
when you're calling in, you're like inviting relationship and conversation. If you're calling somebody out, you're like, Vicky, like what you did was wrong. It doesn't really like encourage us to be like teammates. You know what I mean?
And I get what you're saying, I just don't get that from saying
Right.
call in, not out.
Great, so it sounds like maybe that needs to be explained a little bit more. Great.
Emily,
Yep,
can you put it up on the screen again? I don't have access to the Google document, so I can't access it.
oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I think that I am updating that right now, and I will bring it up on the screen as well. So it should be accessible. Thank you for calling me in on it, and pointing that out. So I'm making a comment here on the call-in, not out. And I'm gonna say that Emily will propose some new language. Troy, were you saying something there?
Well, perhaps because of my background and everything, I don't know what language is better than call in, not out.
Okay. I guess I was thinking I would look maybe at our KEFC or Consumer Food Collaborative language that we have for this, a similar one, because those are written out a lot more than these. So I was gonna maybe grab some of that language.
Okay.
Looks good.
Cool, thank you. Any other feedback, questions?
Emily, in another space that you and I were in together, I think it was Grow Well, there was some discussion about the term of use of the word articulate.
Yes. Is that
And
in there? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we-
Articulate, yep.
And I don't remember where we landed at Grow Well. But can you just look at that? Because there are some people who in the community who could feel put off by use of that word, because it's often used to describe folks in a way as if it's almost surprising.
Yes, thank you, Troy. I made a comment, so yeah, I will grab this. I'll look at what Growell did and update this line. and then we can
Thank
review.
you. I know we had lots of conversation around it, and I remember that we came to something else. I just can't remember what it was.
I agree, yep.
Thank you.
There's another expression for it here, and it says express ideas clearly and effectively.
That's great language.
So we can't express ideas clearly and effectively all the time. Is that a little, I don't know, softer maybe? Try.
Well, do you hear Vicky's asking how you feel
Yes,
about?
it sounds a little antiseptic to me, but it certainly should be in the consideration set, but we can also look at, and Emily can share via email, the language that we came to in Grow.
Great.
Because again, express ideas clearly and effectively presumes, that people have public speaking or presentation skills. People can sometimes stumble through what they are trying to get across and still be very well understood.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm leaving some space for any other comments. All right, it seems like a great next review of it. So I'll do a little more tweaking for those ones that we talked about. And one there, I'll review some of the other ones and see if any of the other ones need to be tweaked. And then I'll bring it back to you all to review once more.
Thank you for bringing this forward, and thank you all for your comments. Much appreciated. I think this is important in any space in which we're working. So, and as Ellis said, he'd like to bring it to his team, which here's my assumption. See, I assume that a doctor, a hospital wouldn't want this, but there you are.
Oh.
Unmute myself. This is universal. It's not specific to anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's sort of a nice time. It feels a little luxurious sometimes to talk about how we're going to relate with each other, but I think it's important in this day and age, and I appreciate it too. All right, thank you, everybody. So next up on our agenda, I wrote it as zoning letter update, but Kristen, you might want to reframe that from how I wrote it there. Do you want to take that and run with it?
Yeah, of course. And this can be something that is pretty quick. Our Director of Housing Initiatives reached out to just let us know that the Kingston Forward project, so that is updating the zoning code from a Euclidean zoning code to a form-based zoning code, that the commission wrote a letter of support for the corner stores inclusion and the removal of parking minimums. So that was, a couple of months ago that you submitted that letter. There will be a Laws and Rules Committee meeting tomorrow night, where they will be discussing the, oh man, it's funny. All of a sudden, it looked like I was like dictating on my notes on my phone. It started to pick up my voice and dictating what I was saying. So tomorrow night, there will be a meeting. They will likely vote on the zoning code, but it's not a guarantee that they will vote on the zoning code because there will be a public hearing at the beginning of this meeting. So TBD if a vote ends up happening, but he just wanted to share with the commission, since he knew that you wrote a letter of support, that this might be happening tomorrow. To give an update on where the zoning code is now, there is a version 4.1 that is online. You can find it on engagekingston.com. And in this version, they have kept the no parking minimums, and they've kept the ability to have corner stores in more neighborhoods, which are now called neighborhood businesses. So yeah, just an update that, so the spirit is still there. All of the language is still there, but they are now called neighborhood businesses. But they can be in these various different zoning areas of Kingston. So it's not just on highly commercial streets like Broadway anymore. They'll be able to do that without requesting anything special. So that has been kept. The two things that Live Well Kingston wrote about in their letter of support have been kept in the version that will possibly be voted on tomorrow. Yes, Troy Ellen?
Yeah, I have a question, clarifying question. Neighborhood businesses sounds to me it could be a corner store or it could be a dentist's office downstairs in a private dwelling. Is that their intention?
I do not know exactly what their intention was. I did watch part of, there is a meeting on the City of Kingston's YouTube page that I believe was from May 31st, which is another special Laws and Rules Committee meeting where they have a robust discussion on these elements. And I think there might be a little bit more information on why they changed it to neighborhood businesses. Perhaps it was I'm not going to say who suggested this change, but they just felt like this sounded better than corner store. So it might be more inclusive because they did talk about in this meeting how, because there was a robust discussion on the ability to have an office on the second floor, which a previous version had changed to where they said that you could have one of these businesses on the ground level, but you couldn't have an office on the second level if you were in a certain residentially zoned area. And that has been changed back into version 4.1. And I think during this conversation, they were talking about like a hair salon, if that's something that's in a neighborhood. So perhaps they felt like by changing it from corner store to neighborhood businesses, it was more representative of the different types of business options. But please, this is being live streamed. I'm saying, do not quote me on that necessarily. You can check out that recording from, I believe it's May 31st on.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. And by the way, I don't have a problem with beauty salons or a dentist's office. My dentist for years in Wilton, Connecticut was on the ground floor of his home. So I believe in things like that. I just was trying to wonder why corner stores went from corner stores. So it sounds as if it's more inclusive, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, and I think corner stores originally wasn't only going to be food retail locations. You know, I remember just reading it and my mind went to that a corner store could be a food retail location. And so it could be related to food access. But yeah, I think it could be neighborhood businesses can be a variety of businesses now.
Thank you very much. And I'll look for the Laws and Rules May 31st meeting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and there's, you can join the meeting tomorrow night if you want to participate. They'll be in person and on Zoom. So that's it for that one.
All right, thank you so much, Kristen. Unless there's anything else, we'll move on to a presentation from a focus team, and that would be Heal Well. Teresa, do you mind taking that away?
Sure, I will start. And I don't know if Kristen's still there. Kristen has largely been the reason that we're so organized and have a wonderful action plan. So I feel like she should be able to showcase a lot of that. But let me just start by saying that we did work on the action plan. Kristen did a lot of that. And we kind of changed the way that we were looking at things and I would guess sort of narrowed our focus so that we were more realistic about what we might be able to accomplish and do. And I lost my document because I have 8,000 screens open. Where did it go? Okay, so in the action plan, essentially, we kind of decided that this year our kind of theme was getting outside and how that really can enhance our health. And so with that, we have a couple of strategies on our action plan, which are parks in healthcare, healthcare in the parks, and then getting outside. And so we have done, we participated in the Earth Fair, which was both an effort to coordinate a walk with the dock from Sun River. Unfortunately, we didn't have anybody show up for that walk, but it wasn't a wasted day because Sun River had folks there who could do some health checks on people. And Live Well was there already, Emily doing bike stuff and whatever else was going on that day. So it was, I think, a good thing to be participating in. We've talked about doing another walk with the doc, potentially with the Institute for Family Health. We are in planning stages or brainstorming stages for that. And we'll know if we're going to do that in the fall or what that might look like. So those are kind of the outdoor things that we're working on to kind of have an in-person presence and help to get people to support getting people outside. And then there are some other things that Emily has been working on related to getting documentation, materials in the healthcare facilities about our park system. And I'll let Emily and Kristen talk more about these things because they're really their projects that that they've been very dedicated to. And then the other major component of our action plan has been improving access to healthcare through policy changes, which is a big undertaking in a way, but we thought, why not put it out there and find out, try to kind of keep our eyes and ears open for ways that we can impact policy. And I don't know that we've actually done anything for that directly, but either of you, Emily or Kristen, can correct me on that. But we've talked about, are there opportunities for us to bring something to the Live Well board so that the commission can actually write a letter? And I've been in conversation with the folks, Caring Majority Rising, who are, all of their work is focused on home health care, fair wages, all of that kind of stuff. And so we're looking for opportunities where we can say, this is something that we want to get involved with, to do whatever we can to shift the policy, whether it's us getting involved some way or presenting it to Live Well to write a letter similar to the conversation that you had earlier about the bike rules. And so that's kind of the second component. The first one, again, is kind of health, how getting outside impacts our overall health. And then we have a couple of strategies for that. And then it's the policy work that we can do. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to either Emily or Kristen, but certainly Kristen, to fill in any of the blanks or clarify anything that I said, because really she put in the work on really the thinking around the action plan and all of the details to it.
I don't know, Kristen may have frozen, so I'll go first about the parks and healthcare. Mostly to say, oh yeah, it looks like we lost Kristen, maybe she'll jump back on in a minute. So first, let me explain what parks and healthcare means. So this would be where Heal Well and Travel Well overlap. And the vision would be that we would provide materials and ways that people can connect with parks and the rail trails from healthcare settings. So that we can be more specific about that. So I'm the creator of the Kingston Green Line map, for example, and I'm doing some other work around the Green Line, which is the network of trails and complete streets within the city of Kingston. So the idea is we would provide them the maps, maybe a large format poster that they could put up like in a waiting room. And it really could be that simple, that we just sort of offer materials that can be distributed. Unfortunately, I have not made any progress on this project, but it's still a goal, and it's one I've had for years. Actually, Susanna has, it looks like Susanna maybe jumped off too, but Susanna has heard me talk about it for years. But as Teresa mentioned, in previous years, Heal Well had the theme of mental health. This year, the theme that we were trying to pull these different goals together was just outside. And so it seemed like this is the year for me to try to do this project of Green Line access. And it sort of feels like a great situation where waiting rooms, maybe this is an assumption on my part, might be looking for materials or might not mind having things for people to look at in those spaces, and why not connect it with our local community. And it sort of feels like a pretty easy project that once I decide the materials, that I just need to connect with people and offer to deliver them. That's my hope anyway. Any questions about that project? And I see that Kristen has jumped back on, so if there's not, I'll now turn it over to Kristen to give your updates for you.
Yeah, sorry, I got kicked out, but I'm back. I assume updates for Heal Well maybe about healthcare and parks and kind of some of those projects. Yeah, okay. Cool. Yeah. So also Teresa, I feel like was saying like this is like I was organizing it and Emily was doing these projects. Teresa's been also amazing. I feel like just like such a supportive. Oh, hello, Aiden.
Oh no, did we lose Kristen again?
I love the way she's frozen now.
I know. Well, we'll take a little baby intermission.
Yeah, can you take a screenshot of Kristen's face there?
That's great. Oh, we might have lost her. Oh, all right. But we got a baby.
Were there questions that anyone had that I had to step away for a minute because it was a little bit chaotic in the other room. But we could take any questions while Kristen returns.
Doesn't seem like there's too many questions. That's a good sign. I always take that as a compliment, meaning that we've described something well.
I do want to make the comment, I like the initiative that overlaps two of the focus teams. And because one of our goals should be, and it seems to be in progress, that we collaborate more within the focus teams. I mean, obviously, each of the focus teams comes and gives us information about what they're doing and their action plans and everything. But if we can find more ways for age well, live well, I travel well, heal well, etc., play well, to work together, I think that would be very good. Maybe that's something we can revisit when we come back together in September and have a conversation about how we could be more intentional about trying to advance that as an initiative.
I'm making a note of that. Thank you. Kristen, if you're back and able, do you want to continue your thought?
Okay, I'm gonna keep my camera off. I'll try this one more time. Also, I love that idea, Troy Ellen. So much of our work does really seem to overlap, and it's so interesting to see the different members of our community who are engaged in different focus teams. So like, I feel like there's definitely people who are in a lot of like Marsha's focus teams that she supports, for example, that are not in the ones that I support. And so we have like different subsects of the community, which is interesting. But so just to share quickly for healthcare in parks. So this is the idea of acknowledging that there are barriers to people going into healthcare facilities and to clinics, whether those barriers are because of time, because of transportation, because of health insurance, because of shame or stigma that people feel for any reason from past experiences when they go into a clinic, wanted to bring healthcare to folks, to the community members in spaces that they are already attending, they are already going to, that they feel comfortable in. And so this idea of healthcare in parks, knowing that we collaborate really well with our Parks and Rec department, who are in the same building as us, in the Andy Murphy Neighborhood Center, and they have events in their parks going on. And so just trying to identify like, where are people already in our community going? Can we bring even just like health screenings to them? Can we bring blood pressure screenings, blood sugar screenings, anything like that, and then connect them with resources from there? So it's not necessarily bringing a clinic to a park, but collaborating with our partners like Susanna through the Institute, and then our partners with Sun River Health to bring these screenings into our park. So the one that Teresa mentioned at Earth Fair, we had that with Sun River Health to do some blood pressure screenings, and then also connected them with resources from Cornell Cooperative Extension of Ulster County. They have a fruit and vegetable prescription program for anybody who screens food insecure by a healthcare provider, and then had the SNAP enroller from People's Place come out for folks who were screening food insecure as well, so that they could understand how to apply for other benefits. So we did that one. So that was, I feel like, a moderate success at Earth Fair. I think there was something around like 35 people that were engaged, and it typically wasn't really the people who they were looking to engage with, who the screenings that they did were people who already had health insurance. And so it was not necessarily folks that they were trying to provide the service for a little bit to reach them. So we've looked at a different list. I have a list of events that I reached out to our director of arts and culture to see if she had any recommendations based upon what she knew was coming up, and spoke to our director of Parks and Recreation as well. And so there's a couple of events coming up that I shared with Teresa and with Susanna and with our partner from Sun River Health to see if they would be interested in providing some of these health screenings. I know Captain Eric, we still need to talk about your summer block party. Don't worry, that event is also on our list. So I think it was a little bit of, let's just see, is this something that the community actually wants and actually needs? Let's get these resources out there and see, like I said, if it's something of benefit. So it's kind of healthcare and parks. Yes, Troy Ellen?
Yeah, I just had a suggestion. We've been casting the net a little bit wider. And, for example, this evening is Wednesday Walk for Black Lives. And that definitely brings people out in the community who may not be the usual suspect for this. And perhaps, tabling at an event like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I can definitely, let's see, I might have to get, I've seen information about that online, but I might have to get a little bit more information, and I can, right now, my process was to facilitate sharing this with the healthcare providers and seeing, is this something that you have the capacity for? And then doing kind of a little bit of the facilitation of gathering information about the event, passing it along. If it's something that eventually grows, can definitely maybe package it, provide a little bit more structure and making it a program. But I can pass that along. And I'm trying to pull up, I'm looking at my email. There's some other events that aren't just happening in the park. So there's a couple of other block parties that were shared that were happening this summer that we're passing along as opportunities for these health providers to go out. So it was called Healthcare and Parks with the original idea that they would be in the city of Kingston's parks, but it's expanded a little bit beyond that as well. But definitely we'll include that one.
Yeah, and I can provide contact information. They usually, now that they're off of Zoom only, they're usually at Academy Green, for example.
Yes, I've seen them because my son goes to the Magic Circle School at YWCA.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Any questions about any of those Healwell activities or projects? Otherwise, this focus team keeps going, going along, thanks to Teresa as chair for years now. So we keep going along. Any other questions? The babies have been born and the work continues. All right. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'll move this along then. We didn't have anything in new business, so we can do some announcements and communications, and then we can wrap up our meeting. I'll start with folks in this room. Any announcements and communications? You usually have a couple.
Sure, I have one or two. We are still accepting applications for our summer youth camp, which is a 5-day, 4-night sleepaway camp in Bloomingdale, New Jersey. It's for children ages 7 to 12. It costs us $300 to send the child. It costs the parents $30, so that way we know we get the paperwork back. And we have found that charging them 10%, we get all the papers back and we can send kids, and that goes for the 2nd and 3rd week of July are the 2 sessions that we're sending them to. And this is at Star Lake Camp in Bloomingdale, New Jersey, which is celebrating 100 years for summer camps this summer. So we're trying to get the word out. We have 21 slots available. We have 10 filled as of right now. So we'd love to see more kids be able to go to camp this summer at a relatively cost-effective rate. As well as on July 29th, after I leave from here, going to back to the Salvation Army to have a block party planning meeting. We've had the block party at the Salvation Army in years past. COVID kind of took that away from us, but we want to bring it back this summer. So our tentative date is Saturday, July 29th. We have a few folks who are already willing to table, but if you know anyone that would like to table, we would feel free for folks to come on out, be a part of that. We have a bouncy house and a bouncy obstacle course thus far, and we'll be doing hot dogs and chips and things like that to give out, and just encourage everyone to come and enjoy the day and get some information about the Salvation Army and our upcoming programs in the fall.
Do you know what time that'll be at?
10 a.m. to 2 p.m. tentatively.
Great. And when you have outreach materials, a flyer or an image.
Yep.
Send that to me.
Fantastic.
Anything else?
That's all for now.
You got anything? You want to announce? Oh, if they, so you started by saying you were looking for applications to, if someone had someone, they would send them to the website?
Send them to starlake.camp. And the applications are on the website. Everything is web-based to fill that out. And my wife heads that up for us in the office. So she would be the one to then reach out to the parents and communicate any further needs, paperwork-wise, and to meet the parents and the children so they know what they're getting into. Yes.
I do have an announcement. Our Grow Well focus team, we're having our annual community garden tour. This year, it's going to be a community garden bicycle tour. So, however, it is not a requirement that you have a bicycle, but we are going to be visiting the tour includes 5 stops at community gardens that are supported by the Grow Well Collective. It's Saturday, July 1st, 9 a.m. We're starting at George Washington Elementary School on Wall Street, and then from there we'll head to South Pine Street Farm, then Barman Park, then the Y Farm, and we'll end at 12:30 at the Roundout Gardens, community gardens, and you can bring your own lunch if you like. If you do not have a bicycle or helmet, you can contact Emily. The event is posted in the mayor's newsletter. It's on our Live Well Kingston page and our Facebook page for Live Well Kingston. So come and join us. You don't have to do the whole tour. You can meet us at any stop along the way. I don't have the specific times, but we have to set times to keep it moving. Because once we get this crowd together, we would just, frolic,
We eat at the gardens.
and laugh and taste things and smell stuff, and it's gonna be fun. So spread the word. Thanks.
Vicky, got it?
No, thanks.
I'll share 2 things. One is that last month we had our second community forum at Samadhi. It was also online around the opioid problem and the settlement funds. So we're really looking, our opioid strategic action team is really looking for any innovative or any at all ideas in terms of strategies that we can use our funding to support to combat the problem. We're having a really terrible year as far as opioid overdose and fatality go, unfortunately. So just want to kind of say that wherever I go. And then in terms of events, we're having an integrated Ulster potluck picnic with the help of the City of Kingston at Kingston Point Beach on July 13th, I think, if that's a Thursday. And it's for our integrated Ulster partners to network and just kind of spend time with one another in person because we meet on Zoom. But anybody's invited to come on the network and just visit Free Fish.
And it would be a great time to learn about all the different Human.
Totally, yeah, absolutely.
What's
Yeah.
the right name for that category of organizations?
Human services, I would say. I mean, there's schools, there's police agencies that participate in integrated Ulster, but it's basically like helping providers, folks, entities in our community that works with the public and it's some kind of helping capacity, hopefully.
Cool, thank you for that. Sure. I'm gonna go to Zoom. Elias, and then Troy Ellen, then Teresa, and then Kristen. Dr. Lee, anything?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, Troy Ellen, got any announcements, communications?
No, I do not.
All right. Teresa, do you have anything else you want to mention? When is your radio show on?
Well, my radio show's on Mondays, but I'm going to be on a 6-week hiatus because I'm going to be away, and so folks will be filling in for me. But it'll still be going on.
Cool.
And it'll be going on live?
Yes, yeah. There will be folks doing the show while I'm away. Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure I've booked some underwriting into your program.
Yes, and thank you. It's always nice to see that and read that. It feels nice to have that.
Thank you for doing it.
Yep.
Teresa, I'm sorry if you said this at the top of the meeting. Will you remind us of the name of your radio show?
I want what she has. Amplifying women's voices and their stories.
And you said it in a radio voice. That was great.
And you can listen to it anytime on the Radio Kingston archive, radiokingston.org.
We're ready for the broadcast. Kristen, any last thoughts or things you want to announce? Oh, do you want to mention the emergency food plan that it got published?
Yeah, of course. So we were able to release the RFP for the City of Kingston Food System Plan. That is to hire a consultant or team of consultants to develop a plan that will help to strengthen our local food system here in the City of Kingston, with the acknowledgement that our local food system exists within a large regional food system, but the focus will be on the City of Kingston because it is being funded by ARPA funding that the City of Kingston received. And there will be a focus on increasing food security as a part of this because a food system is very large and complex. And so there are many different ways that we could go with this. And that was one of the directions to help us kind of narrow the focus. Application or proposals for this are due on July 5th. And we hope to be able to make a recommendation for a consultant to hire, I believe, by the end of July is the timeline that I have, and it will get started in August. So I'm very excited that I have receipt confirmations are essentially like an intent to submit a proposal. It's not an actual proposal. Not everyone submits one, but I received my 9th one. So everyone on my review committee, sorry, Marcia, we're going to have a lot of work to do. We'll see how many proposals we actually get. I'm very excited. There's a wide variety of firms and individual consultants who have reached out with inquiries about this. So really excited, can definitely share. By the time that the commission has the next meeting in September, we should have a consultant hired. They should already be getting started at that point. Fingers crossed. You can't see because I don't have my camera on, but I'm like crossing my fingers that this all goes smoothly on that plan. And then I had 2 other things I just wanted to share with just knowing that the commission will not be meeting in August and in September. There's just 2 policy updates in case you're interested. The Farm Bill is being renewed this year. So the Farm Bill is a piece of federal legislation that is renewed every 5 years. It is relevant often to our work because the Farm Bill has the SNAP funding as a part of it. So there's SNAP funding, there's the Farmers Market Nutrition Program. There's a lot of nutrition programs that are funded by the Farm Bill. And so every 5 years, they take a look at it, they create a new budget for it. And that will be up for renewal in September. So they're getting started this summer on it. It's laughable to think that it would actually be done with by September. That is just when the past 5-year cycle ends in September. So there's a lot of different policy platforms online that other organizations who very specifically work in policy have put together. If you are interested in that, I'm always very happy to share that. So there's just a lot of information out there. I thought people might be interested to know that the Farm Bill is up for renewal, and the values-based procurement bill that the commission actually last year wrote a letter of support to Senator Hinchy's office regarding the values-based procurement bill. So that is that institutions that receive state funding, like school districts, would be able to purchase food at a higher cost that's not just the lowest responsible bidder, which is the way it is currently. They just have to buy the cheapest food if these vendors met different values. So one is nutrition, there's some on farm workers' rights, there's environmental sustainability, animal welfare, and so forth. That did not make it to the floor last year in the legislative session. It made it to the floor this year, and it passed in the Senate, and it is now on to the Assembly for them to review. And I was confused because I thought Congress was over for this year, and I looked and they are having an extension of the Assembly because they did not pass all of the bills that have been proposed on their floor. So I need to do a little bit of research. This is me. I'm just curious about it. I'm not sharing with any legislator how they should vote one way or another. But I know that last year it was something that the commission wrote a letter of support on. So I thought that y'all be interested to know that it is one step closer to perhaps being passed in the New York State Congress to have this values-based procurement bill. So if anyone has questions on that, I'm more than happy to send you information about the bill that's being passed or about the Farm Bill. There are policy platforms I can send you links to educate yourself on that. Also happy to answer questions about the food systems RFP, all of those things.
All right. Thank you very much, Kristen. I don't see any questions at this time, but we know how to get in touch with you. I don't think I have any announcements or communications because you all did such a great job announcing all the things. Then my last thing, I'll just say, yeah, we have July and August off. Please don't come here. I will be here. So our next meeting will be September 20th at 4:15. Any other questions before we adjourn for a summer break? All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate you all coming out.
Thank you.
Happy summer.
See you all in September, and probably I'll run into you around town. Take care.
You too, everybody.
Have a great summer, everybody.
Bye.